Man, you remember 6 years ago when everybody said that Babymetal was going to ruin heavy metal, that they were going to destroy it, it was going to be an Armageddon of seismic proportions, and that metal would never ever be the same? Well, here we are in 2019, and where is that Armageddon? Where is this huge event that was supposed to happen due to this band being a part of the heavy metal landscape? I'll tell you what's changed in that 6-year period. Babymetal has been widely accepted by the heavy metal community, including some of its biggest names, such as Rob Halford, for example, and people have found different things to complain about. So yeah, about nothing has changed, so there you go. And obviously they've been more of a positive force because the music has been relatively fun. We've talked about the last 2 albums. Metal Resistance especially was a heck of a treat. Now with Metal Galaxy, this is a bit different considering the band is now a duo, with UI Metal no longer being a part of the product due to an undisclosed illness, which I hope you get well soon, Yui, because 20 years old, that is way, way too young to have an undisclosed illness sort of kick you out of a product such as this. Hopefully you are able to make a swift recovery and return to music very, very soon. So with this, and with the success of Metal Resistance, the subsequent touring, and the sound that we became very accustomed to, Metal Galaxy promised to be a brand new galaxy. Literally, they went for this idea that Babymetal is now flying around a different distant galaxy and exploring different things through sound. And with Dada Dance and Elevator Girl, we do get a little bit of a piece of this, and it's one that does seem to have a little bit more of a relation to a little bit of metal-infused J-pop or K-pop, which has always been part of the traditional Babymetal sound. It's always been in there. They are, after all, somewhat of a teen idol group to go along with their, metal idea. It's that fusion that has really created sort of the controversy that has now become the legend of Babymetal. And these 2 tracks do have a very upbeat feel to them, though they do lean a little bit more toward that pop department. If there's one thing that you're going to notice on Metal Galaxy is, just as the idea of traversing to a new galaxy would expect, this is a very creative and varied album, to use 2 separate meanings of the same word. Going into Shanti Shanti Shanti, which was once again very similar to what we have gotten prior, only with a little bit more of that metallic edge. We did also notice in Future Metal the sort of storytelling of this album is being taken place. It's sort of giving us the background of going on to a new galaxy. But Shanti 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 going into Oh Majane, which feels like it should be on One Piece. I mean, can we just be real here? This feels like a shanty, like Aelstrom should cover this song. This is just a really fun track. Now, so far, these songs, if they've been one thing, they have been extremely fun. With Metal Resistance, the songs were fun, but they also had sort of that metallic edge that had the guitar solos and a lot of composition that just felt all over the place. Very high energy. We still have all of those things, only this is leaning a little bit more toward the fun department until we get to Brand New Day. Brand New Day features 2 members of Polyphia, which is a progressive rock group that does dabble in some gent. They are mostly instrumental, and they have a following all of their own. And as a result, this song sort of morphs and takes on that style. And this is a really nice touch, considering it does give dynamic range for the girls. It does allow them to do a little bit more and allows their voices to really carry over into a brand new genre, showing that the voices here are very dynamic and they are able to do a little bit of everything as a result of their ability. And it just works really well and very, very nicely. With this song, it is truly one of the highlights of the first half of this album, which, by the way, is 16 tracks, which looks a little bit harrowing, maybe a little bit like it's be a little too much, but in some editions this is being sold as a 2-disc set, which is interesting considering the first half is only 25 minutes and the second half is longer than that. It's an interesting idea. In fact, with Brand New Day, we are nearly at the end of that first disc, sort of the smaller disc of the 2. And I would also say the one that has a little bit more of that range toward the pop department as well, almost like they wanted to split things up a little bit with the pop side and then the more creative rock side with the second half. Because the very next track, which is Up, Down, Left, Right, B, B, A, B, literally feels like a Dance Dance Revolution track with Babymetal just littered within. Like, this was just made to be on a brand new edition of that game. And you know what? It's honestly very charming, it's extremely endearing, and it's fun to listen to. That's the thing. if you are going into this album, and if you're going into anything with Babymetal without the idea of having fun, you know, if you're approaching this seriously like you would a dark, spooky black metal album, you are not going to enjoy this. You're not going to have a good time because you're already giving yourself that mental edge that you are not going to be moved by something. And, you know, you instead have one expectation. If you don't get that, you're not going to be happy. You have to approach this album very loosely, almost with zero expectation, and then just allow the fun to sort of take over, to allow the rhythm and the music to become very infectious, because that's exactly what does occur. Going into Night Night Burn, this is the final cut off of that first album, and it's an interesting one. This is one that, again, seems to stay with that style that we've gotten throughout this this opening 8 tracks, these very high energy, high pop quality ideas with a little bit more growling starting to take place. Perhaps we are starting to see a bit of a changeover. I wonder what we are going to see with Disc 2. Before we get to Disc 2, let's take a look at some out-of-town review scores. These are albums that we haven't gotten to in a full-length review, but you probably still want to know the score of. Insomnium's Heart Like a Grave, 28. In Mourning, Garden of Storms, 25. Flying Colors, Third Degree, 21.5. Borknagar, True North, 26. Gatecreeper, Deserted, 21. Cranial, Alternate Endings, 17.5. Lacuna Coil, Black Amina, 18. Clone, Le Grand Voyage, 22. Entrails, Rise of the Reaper, 22. This has been your Out of Town Scores. Now let's return to the review. Bye! So Disc 2 starts off a little strangely within the name of. This is one that has more growling and doesn't sound like the girls are hardly present at all. Almost as though this is to indicate that they have found some sort of strange life form among the metal galaxy that now presents themselves as either an enemy or perhaps a brand new ally. It's a strange idea, and this is a 4.5 minute long track, and we're coming from the first disc where there has been no song that has really eclipsed 4 minutes with the lone exception of Brand New Day. So this is already larger than any other song on the album to this point. It's a very strange introduction, but it then goes into Distortion and Papaya, and you're starting to see with these songs that there is a lot more of the energy mixed with aggression. So we have a harder edge disc coming with Disc 2, which only gets even stranger with BXMXC, which I can only describe as Babymetal's take on mumble rap or crunk rap or Migos rap going alongside of a little bit of deathcore, like they listened to, I don't know, an Attila record and thought, we could probably do that and make it cute as fuck. And guess what they did? They did it and they made it cute as fuck. This is ridiculous. It's absurd. This is an idea that shouldn't work. This is something I should listen to and not enjoy, but I find myself with a big stupid grin on my face as I listen to this entire song. It is literally, it has a secret charm that perhaps just broke through my dumb heart and was able to get me really enthralled and really into it. I don't know. Babymetal apparently just has this effect on me. Heart Kwai, maybe I am just destined to be the Kwai. I'm now coverkillernation, or no, Cover Kwai Nation. There we go. I'm softened in my old age apparently. But then we get into the final 4 cuts on this album, and it is definitely a lot more of that rock sense. So we have sort of not totally abandoned that pop sensibility, but instead it's now one where the guitar and sort of the heavy metal sides that we heard a lot more exclusively on Metal Resistance have now come to play again. And we're hearing styles that feel a little bit like classic hard or arena rock with the very follow-up track, the BXMXC, Kigrayu. And then Starlight is not so much a ballad, but instead has a little bit of energy that is infused with some more like alternative or, you know, slightly like alternative metal type style, a little bit of a rock style sort of fused in there. There's more growls on this side of the album as well. Whether it's pop or not, it's kind of wild where they dance. And then Shine is the longest cut on this album and feels like it's meant to be perhaps the one from Metal Resistance, only here on Metal Galaxy, and it falls a little bit short of that goal. It is it's a good song, but something about the one was just absolutely magical. It was a absolutely it was a finale that you just remembered and was the absolute highlight of the second half of Metal Resistance and made that album feel so much bigger than it actually was. Shine does not quite pull that off, but Arcadia is very, it tries to do its best. It tries to do its best to end this on a high note and does so by basically giving us Babymetal meets Dragon Force to start, and continues throughout the 5.5 minutes here. It is an act finale. It is interesting. It feels very sudden. We don't really have much of a conclusion, and I don't know if that really even matters. Maybe this is a to be continued, just like See a Space Cowboy. But this, I like this track. This track is a lot of fun, and like I said, the idea of Babymetal meets, power metal is super cool. So where are we with this disc? I feel like I was just as all over the place as this album was during this review. That's the only way you can truly review this, I suppose. I think it's a 23 out of 30. This is not quite as good as Metal Resistance, but what I love about this album is how often I smile while I listen to it. How many times I find myself and catch myself just grinning a bit at these tracks or moving without even thinking about it, so that subconscious motion. This is just enjoyable listening. It doesn't necessarily have to be a question about whether or not this is metal or not, and I think that's sort of been the point from the start. It's not meant to be solely this metal infringement or anything like that. And in fact, those of us who think too hardly about those things are perhaps the ones where the joke gets sort of played on them. But this is still an album where its variety gives it a lot. It does offer it a lot. It's something that should have honestly hurt this record, but it was executed so well that it did not. And so I feel the 23 score is very fair. Metal Resistance still, I think, will remain their pinnacle, considering it had both variety and then just the musicality on that album was absurd, and the songwriting was just a bit better than what we got here on Metal Galaxy, but still top-notch work, and I still don't see the problem with Babymetal. If you see a problem with Babymetal, we just don't see eye to eye. They're just not going to really be convincing me otherwise. But I do want to know what you thought about Metal Galaxy by Babymetal. Please let me know in the comments below. My name is coverkillernation, and I'm glad I got to talk about these guys one last time. Take care, guys. See ya.